One of the things that people are always wondering about the little Rebel 500 is how well it can handle having a passenger on it. So today we have my wife with me. We're going to put her on the back and go for a ride and give it a real world test and see how it does.
Perfect.
That's right, I finally put a passenger seat and passenger pegs on the Rebel so we can finally test it out. My wife and I have not been on this yet, so this will be our first time seeing what it's like. We're going to do kind of an all-around course where we're going to leave and go on a road that has a speed limit of about 40, hop on some back roads that have a speed limit of about 35, go through downtown where it's probably going to be a little bit of stop-and-go traffic, and then on the way home, hop on the highway where there's a speed limit of 50 or 60 to kind of get a feel for how it is all across the map. Now, hopefully it goes without saying that this is not the stock seat on the bike, so this seat does sit me up a little bit higher and should also sit her up a little bit higher, and it's a bit more firm than stock as well, but regardless, the ride should be about the same. Alright, now before we head out, we're going to have her sit on the bike just to see how it feels, make sure that it's comfortable before we're on the highway and it's too late to turn back, so why don't you go ahead and hop on it and see what it's like. How's it feel? Firm. You can see there's definitely not a whole lot of room, but should be just fine for the two of us. And then another thing to note also is that with the added weight, you want to go ahead and adjust the preload on the rear shocks. I normally have it set at 2, which is how it comes from the factory, but with the added weight, I switched it firmer to setting 4. If you want to know how to adjust that setting, go ahead and click up in the top right-hand corner of the video right now, and you'll see a link to the video I did about that. And I guess let's hit the road now. Alright, go ahead and hop on. Do you feel okay?
Yep.
Alright. Alright, and off we go. And I figure it's worth mentioning that when you saw her sit on the bike, she is about 5'5", and then at the end of this you'll see both of us sit on the bike at the same time, and just for reference, I'm about 5'10". It's also worth noting that the maximum weight that this bike can hold, according to the Honda manual, is 346 pounds, and the two of us combined weigh only about 280. We're cruising at about 50 right now and everything feels fine. I hit the brakes and she definitely just slid into me a little bit, but that's probably just because the seat's a little bit slippery. She's used to the VFR, which has a grippy rear seat so that she doesn't slide around. No big deal though.
That scared me.
You're not used to that, are you?
No.
Yeah, definitely hold on. On the bright side, like, you slid but it didn't push me around or anything.
Okay, good, because I was like, holy crap.
So yeah, if you're new to the channel, I also have a VFR 750, so if you ever hear me reference that or make a comparison to that, that's what I'm talking about. Now I can notice that I have to shift a little bit higher in the RPMs than I normally would just to pull the extra weight, but that's to be expected and it's nothing crazy. And obviously you need to give it a little bit more brake than you normally would as well to slow it down just the same, but again, that's to be expected. We've been cruising at about 50 or 55 with no issues, and now we're about to get on the back road where it's some twisties at about 35. Definitely going to slow down a little bit more graceful this time so she doesn't slide around, and yeah, that time we slowed down just fine. Getting into some of the swoopy twists and turns now. So far it's handling just like it would with just me on the bike. This bridge has a bit of a bump, so we'll see how it handles it. Actually really well. I did just need a downshift there to carry my speed without having to get on the throttle too much, and we've been cruising at about 45 miles per hour this whole time without any problems. Gonna downshift again so that I have enough power to get up this hill. And I probably wouldn't have even needed to downshift there if it weren't for this car in front of us going a little bit slower than we were. All right, got a downshift and merge here. Did that with no issues as well. Swooping down and around. Yeah, I mean, I literally can't even tell she's on the back for the most part still. Alright, heading across the bridge, and it's a little windy today, so we'll see how that affects riding with a passenger across the bridge. Honestly, so far, having a passenger on the back actually makes it more stable crossing the bridge. It's less windy than I thought, but honestly, it would probably be a little bit more sketchy if it was just me on the bike, because it would be lighter and not as planted. I think I just heard her say, "Oh my gosh," as we went over those bumps back there, which probably means that she's not having a super great time over all of the bumps with this suspension. Alright, and now we're headed into downtown Annapolis, where it's going to be a lot slower paced, probably a little bit of stop and go traffic, so we will see how she does at slower speeds. Alright, we're cruising at just about 15 miles per hour through this part, coming to a stop. Did I hear you saying, "Oh my gosh," as we went over those bumps?
Yes.
How's it feel?
It's rough.
Like, rough like it feels like it's like bottoming out, or rough as in you're like bouncing?
Rough as in like it's not soft.
Got it. Her exact words were, rough as in like it's not soft at all. So we'll see if that's a deal breaker, or if it might help to just make this suspension slightly softer, or if I'll have to upgrade the rear suspension in the future to keep going on trips on this bike. She just smacked her helmet off mine. Getting into some thicker traffic in here. Got a protest going on. Okay. Gotta slow down for the traffic circle. Still feels nice and stable. Gonna head up Main Street with the bricks and see how she does on that. Cruising at about 10 miles per hour. So far, so good. I have to keep my feet down a little bit longer as I'm pulling away from a stop, but that's to be expected just to keep it stable. And I gotta work the clutch a little bit more just to kind of keep it nice and steady. But again, nothing that I didn't expect already. This would be a lot less annoying if this Tesla was doing more than 8 miles per hour, but still manageable. A lot more manageable on this than it would be on my VFR, that's for sure. Bumpy turn into the roundabout. She probably didn't enjoy that too much, but it felt fine to me. Turn on to West Street, which is another brick road. This Tesla is the bane of my existence. Just do more than 5 miles per hour and this ride would be so much easier. Gonna head down this way. Ooh, another bumpy road. Feels okay to me, but might not feel quite as good to her. Crossing another little bridge here, and this bridge is actually windier than the other one was, but again, it feels totally fine. The extra weight actually helps it feel more planted. That bump probably didn't feel too great to her. We're going against the wind, so I'm finding that I do have to keep the throttle open a little bit more just to stay at speed, but nothing too serious. And we just hit a bump and I could feel it bounce around a little bit more than usual, so we'll check in with her. Ooh, hit another couple bumps. Check in with her and see how that felt. And now the real test, because we are merging onto the actual highway. And right after we merge onto the highway, there's going to be a bigger bridge than the other two, and we'll see how it does with all that. Doing about 73 and it's doing just fine. Got passed by a Harley, but whatever. Little bump onto the bridge. Super windy. Oh my gosh, like sketchy windy. All right, we are just steady cruising right around 70 miles per hour with no problems whatsoever. All right, and this is our exit. Slow down for the big turn. Handled it like it was nothing. Slow down for a bit more of an abrupt turn. She definitely just had to squeeze her legs not to slide forward there. Now we're in the home stretch, just headed home. We'll be there in a couple minutes and we'll do our final interview to see how she felt about it and see how the Rebel did overall. And you know what? We'll go through this little neighborhood up here too, just for good measure. will say that I found myself kind of pulling the clutch in to come to a stop as opposed to downshifting if I know that it's just a red light or a stop sign, to kind of help from an abrupt stop so she doesn't slide forward into me quite as much. Not that that's necessary, I'm just kind of doing it to try and make it as easy as possible. And again, this isn't the stock seat, so the stock passenger seat may be a little bit grippier than this one is. And I just heard her scream, "Whoa!" over that speed bump, so I'm assuming that's not a good sign. Pull in here nice and slow. And we are home. We did it. Let's see what she thinks. All right, guys, we are back from our first ride on the Rebel. We're gonna give a little review as to how we both thought it went, and we're gonna try to be as objective as possible, but keep in mind, the only bike that we have ridden together is the VFR, which we have gone on rides together for several years. So there's gonna be some comparisons to that in there, just kind of naturally. But first, we're both gonna sit on the bike so you can see how it looks with both of us on it, since you've really only seen her sit on it. And again, just for reference, I'm about 5'10", 5'11" on a good day, and she's about 5'5". All right, hop on. So you can see it's not exactly the most spacious thing ever, but I guess there's enough space. Let's get into how it felt on the ride. All right, so we've had an owl losing its mind behind us in the woods. We had a bug fly into my face. We've had people pulling their cars in and honking their horns. So we're gonna try this again, and hopefully we can get it done in one take. We just got back with the Rebel, so how comfortable was it overall?
It was okay.
It was okay, but nothing to write home about?
No, nothing really to write home about.
I specifically heard a couple times when we hit a bump, it didn't feel terrible to me, but I heard you let out a little, "Oh!" or like an, "Oh God!" What was that? Was it like bouncy, or could you feel it like bottoming out and jarring you, or was it both?
More so bottoming out and jarring me. There were a few that were like bouncy, which was kind of also a little like surprising, because it's like, whoa, you know, you gotta get
like, is it gonna buck you off of it?
Yeah. But the majority of them were like pretty hard bumps.
Okay, so that might be the setting on that. I have it set on 4. If we ride it again, we could try it on setting 5 to see if that helps. But the suspension isn't great on this in the first place, so that might be something that I'd need to upgrade possibly. And I know you said the seat was really firm, but this isn't the stock seat, so if you have the stock passenger seat, that might be a little bit better. It does feel softer than this, but we haven't ridden on it, so I can't say for sure. And then also, like I mentioned when I was talking earlier, you slid into me a few times, but this is really slick. I think it's slicker than the passenger seat from the factory, so you guys might not have that issue also. And then you also mentioned that on the highway it was a lot sketchier than on the VFR because of the wind. Yeah. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
I mean, pretty much I can just feel, like, I could feel the wind everywhere. Like, I could feel it like rocking my legs like back and forth, my arms, like everywhere. Whereas like when we're riding the VFR, I don't ever feel any wind at all.
Yeah.
Like there's just this magic shield around me on the VFR that is not on this.
So I know you felt it a lot over the bridges because it's a little windy today. Did you feel it also when we were just like on the highway alone? Okay.
Yeah. More so on the bridge, obviously, but definitely on the highway too. Yeah.
And we were cruising at like 70, so it makes sense that with literally no fairings on this that it would be windier. I noticed that it was less sketchy for me on the highway with you on it because the extra weight had it planted a little bit more, but I could definitely see why it felt sketchy to you. Did it feel like unsafe, like your heart was racing? Be honest.
There was a little bit more adrenaline than usual.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, I didn't feel unsafe.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about like when we went through downtown when we were going really slow? Aside from when our helmets clacked together because first gear is a little touchy, how'd you feel at the slower speeds? Did you feel stable? Or?
I didn't feel unstable. I just like know that it's like I could hear the revving, and for me it just made me like a little more conscious and aware of like how it may feel for you or
Yeah.
that.
So for me, at slower speeds through downtown, I actually enjoy this a lot more than the VFR, because we kind of talked about it inside a little bit, but the weight of the Rebel plus your weight is probably still slightly lighter than just the VFR by itself. So the Rebel in slow city traffic or whatever, I almost couldn't even tell that you were on the back, and even when I was on like a hill, it wouldn't roll back quite as much from the added weight, so it was easier to get going. So I think this is the clear winner for me at like slow speeds, but the VFR, hands down, no competition on highways, is a lot better. This, I don't know if you and I would ever want to do any kind of trip over like 50 miles per hour on it. The bike can definitely do it. I wasn't like having to give it a lot more throttle than with just me, but it was definitely not as comfortable and a little bit more sketchy than when we take the VFR out.
Yeah. My other concern, I guess, about this seat is I'm not sitting as high up, so I can't see over him, and like I can't see the yellow lights or the red lights or the green lights, so I can't be as aware as I just squeaked, as aware as I would like to be, because I know when we were coming, like I guess a light turned yellow and I didn't see, and I like slid into the back of him.
Yeah.
Because he started braking and I didn't know. So that makes me
uneasy.
a little uneasy.
Yeah, so on the VFR, you can see, here, step over here because I think it might be blocking it, but on the VFR, you can see it's not so much that the passenger seat sits a lot higher than the main seat, but the whole bike is kind of tilted forward. So like when we ride that, here, you can come back over. But when we ride that, I know you say that you like being able to see, like we're riding and you're just relaxed with your hands at your side, just looking around at the scenery.
Yeah.
But with this, you can't see anything past my big dome. Plus, I mentioned it when we were riding around and I was talking, but also this, I have reupholstered the passenger portion with the grippy material. This, not so much. Mm-hmm. So you're going to slide around a little bit more, but that's something that we could change on this if we needed to.
Which I don't even feel like I was having that much of an issue with like sliding, because I'm not slanted like I am on this.
Right.
It's just that like I can't see anything.
Yeah.
Except the back of the helmet.
All right. Any last thoughts or anything that we missed?
I don't think so. I mean, it's fun. It's definitely a fun little bike. It's just like I feel like this is luxury and this is like
the toy.
Yeah. This is like Rebel.
So I guess what it comes down to is, for anything on the highway or where we're going more than 50 for a long period of time, it's probably this, no questions asked.
Yeah.
Whereas, would you still feel comfortable taking this if we're like jumping on College Parkway where it's only 40 or 50 and then taking the back roads through downtown?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right.
Definitely.
Well, there you have it. I think that should do it. I guess expect to see some more videos of us doing fun little trips on this bike, as long as they're not super far. And hopefully that helped you guys kind of get some insight into how the bike is with a passenger on it. Make sure to go ahead and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and smash the like button if you haven't already. And we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Bye.
Honks his horn. Ow. What the hell? Oh my gosh. Demon bug.